Welcome to the Ditch the Struggle podcast. I'm your host, Alana Rosso. I'm a graphic designer turned career and success coach who knew I could do better, but kept falling short of where I wanted to go. But after years of exploring personal and career development, business, money mindset, and energy work, I'm here to tell you that yes, you can move from stuck and defeated to empowered and confident. Ready to dive in? Awesome. Together, let's ditch the struggle. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This episode today is about tapping into how you feel in physical spaces. And if I lose you on this episode, that's cool. By the time we make it to episode 200, you will definitely be long gone then, because the truth is physical environment for me, and I think for a lot of people, is huge. And I am talking about vibration. I am talking about energy. I am talking about how you feel in specific places. And for me, understanding the impact of different environments on my mental, emotional, physical state has been so huge. I mean, I'm definitely a sensitive person. I just feel things a little bit differently. A lot of people understand what it's like to be an empath. They call them also like highly sensitive person. All of that stuff is totally true for me. I don't usually sit too long in labels. I don't want to wade in that water too long. However, I do recognize that it does affect me. And as I said at the beginning, I think for a lot of people, it affects them more than they think. And part of the reason of telling this story or these stories is to get you to think about how you have felt in certain places. So it could be a work environment, could be a house, an apartment that you lived in, a neighborhood that you were in. Just what were you feeling? And what's so interesting is that I've been kind of diving into this work for a long time, but I had an experience just like 3 weeks ago that almost made me ignore all of my intuition, all of my experience, all the things I've been through. It has to do with a creepy basement, so that'll be the last one I'm going to tell you. And then I was like, wow, no, I have to pay attention to how I was feeling in that creepy basement. Okay, so let's start at the beginning with the pawn shop. So the pawn shop was literally me in a pawn shop. And how did I get there? So I had this really great job for probably 2 decades. I don't know if I've ever spoken about it yet on this podcast. It was a side gig, a side hustle. Surprise, surprise. This is one of 100 side hustles that I did. For many years, I worked with an interior designer who did the designs and the interiors for upscale retirement homes, which is a huge market. And what I did was designed and executed her presentation boards. So let's say she had a vision for a new build retirement home, how it was going to look, like the color palette, the carpets, the curtains, all of that stuff. I would take all the fabric samples, I would like physically cut them all out, and I would put them on these huge presentation boards, these foam core boards, and make them look really nice with like labels on them and descriptors, like this is the recreation room, this is the dining hall, this is the formal library, whatever it was. And I would help her pitch to get buy-in so that she would be the interior designer for this project. And I did hundreds, thousands of these boards because she worked actively for many, many years. And I got great money on the side. It was like to supplement my very sad graphic designer salary that I had for a long time. And they were very physical. So I was cutting things out. I was physically putting them together. We would haul them to get around. I would sometimes go to the retirement homes to look at the places and take measurements. And it was very interesting work, and it just came through an old friend. His mom needed help with this project, and I was so young at the time, and I was like, oh, I can probably do that. You know, it's so important how you present to get buy-in for any kind of creative project, right? And I'm really good at making things look a specific way, the kind of putting the icing on the cake, so to speak. So I was doing this for a long time, and one of the homes that she was working on, it's actually in Newmarket. I just passed it by the other day. So maybe that's what made me think about this story. And the look for this particular retirement home was going to be very like a lot of burgundies and old Hollywood glamour was kind of the theme, but not like a very literal theme. But this was the idea, like just She wanted to actually have some old-fashioned, like black and white photos of old movies because the people living there were older and she wanted to kind of remind them of some of their memories. So one of the things she wanted to do was get some antiques into the home. And she's like, let's go down to Queen Street East where there's a whole bunch of antique stores and pawn shops in Toronto. And let's go find some cool, things. She really wanted giant kind of brass vases. You know, those ones that have the big feathers sticking out? Okay. I was like, sure. So we used to run around HomeSense. We did all these fun things, Winners. It was pretty fun, a lot of what I was doing. But we hadn't really gone to antique stores before. So we go down to a pawn shop on Queen Street East and we're walking in and it's exactly what you would picture from a movie. It's old, it's stuffed with things, stuff overflowing. There's tons of jewelry in kind of these dusty old cabinets. It's cramped. You can tell there's gems in there, and then there's also just some garbage. So it was exactly what you would picture a typical pawn shop to look like. I can't say I've been in too many pawn shops until this moment, and I'm in the store, and she's tootling about, looking for stuff, digging through stuff, trying to find things, and I'm sitting in there, and I'm not feeling good. I'm starting to physically feel nauseous. Not good at all. I'm starting to feel like I want to get out of there. I'm starting to feel almost claustrophobic. But the main thing was the nausea. I felt so sick to my stomach. It got to the point where I did have to physically leave the store. I was like, I gotta go. I gotta get out. And I was standing on the street trying to get my composure, wondering what the heck was going on. Why did I feel so sick so suddenly? It wasn't like I had eaten anything weird, or it was just this full body nausea. Nausea is definitely something that will just hit me when I'm super stressed, uncomfortable. But I was curious. I was like, what is going on? And when I went back into the store, it kind of got stronger again. And when I left the store, it reduced and I had to just stay out. I couldn't stay in there. So she comes out with brass vases and all these things that she found. And I kind of had to bail on her. I was like, okay, I couldn't stay in there. And this was a long time ago. This could be 20 years ago. So it was in that moment that I realized how old things, vibes, things gone by, the past could affect me. Because if you think about a pawn shop, there is so much sadness, stress. That energy is in that store. People are going into these stores who have to sell, their mother's wedding ring to pay for rent. They have to part with things they probably don't want to part with because they need money on the spot, right? So there's despair, there's stress, there's sadness, there's loss. Imagine the feeling of loss, you're having to let go of something that you probably really wanted. Or, sometimes I'm sure they're just stolen things that are sold. But the memories that in that place were so intense and I was feeling it. And you cannot really destroy energy. It is attached to things. And it's interesting. I posted one short story on my Instagram, which was a woman talking about how if you go to a vintage store or a secondhand shop and you bring something home, it can sometimes really not be good for your life because it has a bad energy to it. So I'm not saying it's possessed. What I'm saying is that there could be an energetic tie to it. And this is certainly the case for me. I am so careful about anything vintage or secondhand that I bring into the house. Don't invite me to go to Value Village with you and shop around. I don't want to go. Whereas my sister loves doing that. She's a treasure hunter, loves doing that. Please do. I don't want to do it. It just doesn't feel good to me. And so this pawn shop in particular was the worst vibe, and I physically felt sick. So I started to realize how old vintage things were affecting me. And interestingly, when I look back at my high school days, it was the cool thing to do to go shopping on Queen Street West, so the other side of Queen Street, and buy secondhand Levi's and jean jackets and all these, what was it called? The Black Market. Does that still exist on Queen Street West? And all these vintage stores. And I did it because I was, wanting to be cool as a teenager, and I had way cooler friends. So I was just like tagging along to what they were doing. And I hated it. If I'm totally honest, I look back and I was like, no, I did not enjoy that at all. I did not enjoy that experience. All the stores felt creepy to me. Everything felt heavy. It's just like the heaviness of it, not enjoyable at all. And so this pawn shop was like kind of that on steroids. Okay, so that experience really started to help me realize how physical spaces and the vibrations of things around me were affecting me again physically. I mean, emotionally, I was upset. I felt like ungrounded. I felt like off, just not good. Okay, so then we'll cut to 2010, and this is the raisin pie. So I had lost my dad in 2010, and obviously that experience was like a devastating experience. First time that I'd really gone through a loss of someone, like a family member. Also, it was just a very complicated physical situation. So, and then I ended up being the executor of his estate. So if anyone's ever done that, they know that that's a lot to do. Luckily, our ducks were mostly in a row before I had to step into that role. But it was really overwhelming. I feel like I was looking back, I was like, wow, I was really quite young to be going through all that. And it is a lot. Just thinking back, I think, when you think back, you're like, how did I just get through that, right? Well, luckily, I had a lot of people around me that were helping. And one of them was my friend. I'll call her Bella because that's my nickname for her anyway. Bella's dad was a estate lawyer. And he offered to help me kind of figure out what I need to do. And he had a secretary that also helped me figure out what I needed to do and all the things. And so he was very, very helpful. Like, got me through the process, did so much for me. And he decided he didn't want to charge me any money. And so this was like, of course, the most generous gift. And I was very grateful. So I said to Bella, I was like, what can I do for your dad to say thank you? She knows I bake, like I will bake for everybody. And she's like, well, he really loves raisin pie. And I was like, raisin pie? What even is a raisin pie? Like, that definitely sounds like it's from 1952. And it doesn't sound that appealing. So I look it up, and you don't have to be too horrified. What a raisin pie is basically like a giant butter tart with just tons of raisins. So if you hate butter tarts with raisins, you'll definitely not like a raisin pie. So I was like, okay, I'm making a raisin pie. So I get a recipe online. I buy like 5 pounds of raisins or whatever it is. I did not make the crust. I am not a pastry chef. So I bought a crust. You don't have to put a top on it. So I make the raisin pie. Actually, it looked really good. It was like bubbly and caramelized. And I was like, hey, this looks pretty good. Like really sweet, but good. So she's like, okay, drop it off to me. But for some reason, I had to go drop it off to her workplace. I can't really remember why. So my friend Bella worked in a small private school, which was a giant mansion. And it's in North Toronto. And it's one of those ones where they have small kids to teacher ratio. The children have learning differences or challenges and behavioral challenges. And so it's very much this like boutique little school that does amazing work with these kids. She taught there. Her mother taught there. And she's like, drop off the pie to this school. I was like, okay. So I drive to the school. I had never been there before. And carrying my raisin pie, I go up the front steps and I knock on the door, and a woman comes to the door. And when she answers the door, it's like she's never answered a door before in her life, or is surprised that there's a human on the other side of the door. She was like so confused that I was there. Maybe they don't get people just dropping by. But she just seemed so shocked that I was there. And as soon as she kind of opened the door and greeted me, but again, she was completely confused that I was there, I felt a whole wall of energy hit me that was awful. Like, it was just a wave that felt so heavy, so gross, so dense, and so yuck. Like, I don't know how else to explain it, just total yuck. And so I'm holding the pie, and then I was like, this is for Bella. And I basically threw the pie into this woman's hands. I didn't even care if it was going to hit the floor at this point. I had to get out of that environment. I wasn't even in the school. I was like at the doorstep. I had to get out of it so quickly. She was confused. I had put a Post-it note on it like for Bella. So I was like, I don't even care if this pie makes it to where it's supposed to go. I got to get out of here. I ran down the stairs of that's like the front steps of the school. I ran to my car and I was like, I hated that. What was that? Completely confused. And so I talked to Bella later and I was like, what is with this school? And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, that was an intense energy that I felt just from the doorstep. And she's like, really? Like she was like, wow, you need to come into the school when like after hours when there's no one in there and see what you feel. And I did do a tour of it later and I wouldn't be able to work there. There's so many places that I've been to and I was like, I could not physically stay in this environment for long. So she was fascinated. I did this whole tour. It was so much heavy energy in this school. It was like an old mansion. So that they've converted into all these different playrooms. It was like a really nice house in a really nice area on a really nice street. And it just felt awful. Plus you're having like, thousands of kids go through there for decades who are probably going through a lot. They're having a lot of stress in their lives. They're going through challenges, right? So that raisin pie story has stood out in my mind as a moment where I didn't even physically have to go into a place before I could feel the energy that was hitting me. Okay, so now we're going to cut to the creepy basement. And this is just 3 weeks ago. And again, why this is fascinating is because I almost ignored my intuition. Well, I actually did ignore it. And I didn't actually consciously process what was happening until probably 3 or 4 days after. So I've gone through a lot of physical challenges. I've talked about in prior episodes. And one of my friends who always steers me in amazing directions was like, I really think you should see this practitioner. She's on the Danforth in Toronto. She has a 6-month waiting list, but I'm going to just mention that you really want to see her. And she had told me about her. I'd gone to the website multiple times. I'd seen the woman's photo. And I wasn't getting that, man, I need to see this person. Like I wasn't getting a hell yes. Usually if I see someone's photo, I talk about this all the way back in episode 59, actually when I'm talking about my toxic boss. As soon as I saw her photo on LinkedIn, I had this awful feeling. And I go by that. I will see a photo of someone and I get an instant yes or no. That's usually how I find my podcast guests. And then I do my due diligence after. But usually it's a yes or a no, just kind of getting that initial there's an initial hit that I get. And it's only gotten stronger as I've gotten older because I meditate more and I spend more time in nature and all of that really helps. So I wasn't getting a hell yes to go see this practitioner at all. She's like texting me. She's like, I don't want to bug you. Have you gone to see her? I said, I'm not really sure. I'm kind of sitting on the fence. She's like, I really think you should go. I was like, okay. So I was kind of ignoring my intuition, but I do sometimes hesitate on something and I go for it. And then it is a good experience. So I was like, okay, I trust this person. I value this person. And I'm always curious to try a different practitioner. So I got in an appointment. Now we had an initial phone conversation and it was actually awkward. When you're zigging and they're zagging, like I'm just not clicking with her right now. And again, I'm sure she's amazing at her job. She turned out to be a great practitioner. However, I am not going back. So we had an awkward conversation, but again, I'm going forward. She did give me some really interesting insights into other health things that are helpful. So I go to the appointment, I show up at the clinic, and immediately I go into the clinic, which has all these amazing reviews on Google. It's local, and I don't like it. I don't like the vibe. I just walk in there. It's very nice looking. It's like got this beautiful painting that I was like, oh, that's a really lovely. I would hang that in my house. It's so nice. There was a couple things that triggered me. They were just personal things. So I was like, okay, this is annoying me. I don't like a couple things here, but objectively, this is a nice place. But I don't like the vibe. I don't like the vibe. And I was like, oh God, okay. I'm already starting to feel like, oh, I've ignored my intuition. So then she comes out. She's lovely. She greets me. She's like, okay, we're going to go downstairs. So this is the creepy basement. So she takes me through a door and then through a hallway and through another door. And then I have to go down to a basement, which is basically like going down into the basement of basically a house on the Danforth. It's a building, but I was like, oh my God, we're going into a basement. I'm not a huge fan of basements. I'm not anti-basement, but I'm very, like, I think we're figuring it out here. I'm very particular with my environments. And I'm going down this basement. I was like, I don't want to go down. I just don't want to go down. Again, looks nice. It's like just basementy though. It's very clean. Like the place was spotless. And I just want to sidebar here. If you're any kind of practitioner, or you have a friend who's a massage therapist or wants to start their own clinic or their own practice, and they're thinking that they have to have some really fancy space that's beautiful and big windows and has a view of the ocean or whatever it is, this whole business, and they are thriving. I mean, this woman has a 6-month waiting list, is in a basement, a creepy basement. So you don't need to have something fancy. So I just feel like that's really important to say. I actually see quite a few practitioners who are in basements, but they're just a different vibe. So I go down the basement. She shows me where her room is, and her room was lovely. Like it was done up nice wallpaper, beautiful lighting. Like they had done a great job, but it still was a basement. And I said, I need to go to the washroom. So I go down this hallway, basically like in a laundry room. I felt like I was in the laundry room of someone's personal basement, and there was someone eating lunch in the corner, and I was like, okay, but the vibe, again, super clean, but something was not feeling good. And then I'm kind of annoyed at this point, and I'm like, okay, I've got to go through with this. So we had the whole appointment. I was there almost 2 hours. It was a helpful appointment, I will say that, but something wasn't sitting right with me. And so my body felt good for just like 4 hours, and then after that, my body just kind of felt the way it did before the appointment. That's a different story, but I make it home and I'm sitting there for the weekend because this was on a Thursday. And basically I'm spending the weekend thinking. And I was like, I don't really feel like going back, even though I think she absolutely knew what was going on with my body. She figured it all out. And I was like, I can't go back. And I'm thinking about it and I'm thinking about it. And you know what it comes down to? I didn't like that basement. I didn't feel good there. I don't feel like it would be conducive to healing because I was so uncomfortable in it. And while there is nothing, I don't know how to quantify or measure what I was experiencing, this whole idea of it coming down to vibes is actually, I think, an incredible measuring stick. Even Stephen Bartlett, who is the host of The Diary of a CEO, which I know many people have seen, he's the most data-driven, Apple Watch wearing tech geek person out there. And he will say when it comes to hiring his team and his staff, it comes down to one thing, and that is vibes. And I have found this to be true. So it's vibes between people. There's the energy that everyone's bringing to the table and bringing into a space. And then there's the physical space, the history of it, what's gone on there, things that have happened, any like traumas that have happened, stress that's happened, that like everything's absorbed and it's in the physical space. Of course, you can clear it. I mean, I routinely clear my house. We're burning sage all the time, doing all of that stuff. Most people come over and they say they like the vibe of the house. And it's, again, I actually live in a house from the 60s. So it's an older house, but it's, yeah, I mean, we bring a lot of hopefully positive energy into the space. And you can't control that wherever you go. And what I have thought back on is the different workplaces that I've worked in over the years where I really enjoyed working had a different vibe. It was just more, it just felt high vibrational. I don't know how else to explain it. I remember when I had to take when I took that government job, there's a whole episode I've done on how a government job temporarily saved my life. And I had my interview in different rooms, different parts of the building. It was in the City Hall building of Mississauga, but I hadn't actually seen where I was going to work, like the actual space. And I remember when on my first day, they opened the door and this is the studio you're working in. And I remember breathing the biggest sigh of relief. I immediately liked it. It had huge windows. It was kind of segregated off from the rest of the team, so we had our own little private area, a creative area where they could play music, which was also raising the vibration, because if you're playing great music all day, that's going to have a huge effect on things for the better. it didn't stay that way. The space eventually changed kind of just after I left, but it can have just such an effect. So if you think back to like when you were apartment hunting or house hunting and you walk into a place and you immediately like it or you immediately don't like it, that says a lot. And following that and not forcing yourself to stay in a space that physically is not working for you, or if it's affecting you, you don't feel good. You can sometimes just go to a cafe and you leave. Yes, it's the energies of people around you, but also the physical space too. So I'm now paying way more attention to how I feel in different environments. And generally, I don't like really old things. Like if you live in an old Victorian house and you invite me over for dinner, I will probably be pretty uncomfortable, and don't even think about suggesting we go down to your basement. I don't want to see it. I don't want like I've been in those houses in Toronto and I really hate it. I'm really uncomfortable, except for there's small exceptions to that. Just feels heavy, just feels too heavy for me. And I don't want to be spending my time and my energy in an energy that is not like supportive of me or making me feel better. And, I have been through crazy things in my life where I have gone into spaces that felt really bad and like not great things have happened. So I'm not saying I've lived through the Amityville horror, but I have been through stuff that is like campfire story worthy, things that are just so insane. So I am highly attuned to what's going on. And I think if we all just paid a bit more attention to how we're feeling, you might not be as tuned in or as dialed in as me or someone else, but really thinking it through and then having the discernment and the confidence to say, you know what, no, I don't want to be in that space. So if like you're living in an apartment and it feels really yuck and there's only so much you can do, like you can change your own physical environment. Actually, I'm very excited. I'm finally booking a feng shui guest to come on and talk about this. This is huge and it's been a huge in my life. But if you're if you're kind of like done everything you can to your own physical environment and you're not feeling good about it, you might have to leave that building, that house, that neighborhood, all those things, because it is just not aligned to where you are vibrationally matched. And basically, when I went into the creepy basement, it was not vibrationally aligned to where I want to be. And my healing journey right now is what it came down to. So I'm trying to dial in more, but I ignored it. I was like, I kind of knew going down into that basement. I was like, I don't want to be going down here. But it really wasn't until like the weekend after, a few days after, that I thought, yeah, that environment was not good for me and not ideal. And I cannot go back no matter how good the practitioner was. I am not going to force myself to do something like that. I'm trying not to force myself to put myself in these positions where I'm uncomfortable. Because what is that just creating more friction, more struggle, all of that stuff, right? So I encourage you to dial in to how you're feeling in different spaces. I know the most common thing I hear from people is like when they're house shopping, they'll go to open houses and they just walk in and they're like, oh, it just had the feeling, it just felt right. That's what we need to be leaning into, is the feelings of things feeling right, whether it's an office, a personal space, anything like that. Leaning into that so that we feel good, because what is the opposite of struggle? It is feeling good, and everyone should be doing whatever they can to feel good. And for me, that means no Value Village shopping. That means no pawn shops. It means a lot of not doing a lot of things to protect my energy and just hanging out with my trees to recalibrate and feel better. And if that's what it is, that's what it is. I think acknowledging that that's just what's going to make you feel good is, wow, if you can actually lean into what's making you feel good, you're winning at life, guys. You're winning at life. Take care. Thank you for joining me today on Ditch the Struggle. You showing up here means so much to me. To dig deeper into the topics discussed today and to learn about my work, visit alanarosa.com. And don't forget to download your free resources while you're there. And if this episode resonated with you, please share with others who also want to ditch the struggle. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating and a review, and let me know what you'd like to see more of on this podcast. And before I go, I want to leave you with my 3 favorite ways to ditch the struggle. Be your own best advocate, take baby steps for the win, and forget about a linear career path. It's overrated and you are doing just fine. See you next time.